Economic Conclave 2021, the 7th edition, is the one and only Mr. Piyush Goyal. I don't know how many ministries you had, Mr. Goyal, from railways to food to civil supplies to food processing, industry, commerce. Have I forgotten any?
Food processing is
Okay. So
no food processing.
So food and civil supplies.
And public distribution.
Mr. Piyush Goyal, how do you juggle the demands of these various ministries as diverse as dealing with the farm laws, the agitation of the farmers on the one side, and inviting investments into India from countries as diverse as America, Australia, or Europe?
Navika ji, at the outset, let me compliment Times Now for getting us back into this room after a year. It's the first time I've come here after a year. A room which at one point of time I think we would visit almost every week. But great to see a physical in-person program. And I saw the very impressive lineup of speakers through the last 2 days. And must compliment Times Now for helping rejuvenate that enthusiasm and excitement that India is palpably feeling in terms of economic revival, in terms of getting back into action. And this India Economic Conclave, I'm sure, will set the tone for the next fiscal in a very positive manner.
So, Mr. Piyush Goyal, are you saying the animal spirit has been brought back better by Times Now than by the government?
Well, you look at it as animal spirits. We look at it as positive energy and dynamism and enthusiasm and the building blocks on which the rest of you can create the animal spirits. I don't think the government has to demonstrate that spirit. That spirit is in the people of India. It's in the businesses in India. The government can at best be a facilitator. Government can at best make things easier for all the stakeholders. And in that sense, the government has done, to my mind, under Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi's very, very visionary outlook for the future, a phenomenal job. The budget or the series of budgets that came out in the last 1 year in terms of step after step, announcement after announcement, proactively dealing with the situation as it emerged, have demonstrated to the world that India means business. India is a trusted partner. India's resilience can be seen in every walk of life. And I have no doubt in my mind that going forward, India will be a very solid pillar on which world economic revival and economic growth will happen.
Mr. Piyush Goyal, when we spoke in June last year, you said that the government was keeping a close watch on Chinese investments in Indian companies. Are you continuing to do that, or has the disengagement process also meant a reversal of our stand on investments from China?
I don't think the two things were linked in any way directly. The effort was to make sure that desirable investment comes into India, money which can be very clearly identified, money that we can have a full knowledge about its source, about what kind of companies are investing. And since some of the investments coming in from our land bordering countries also were associated to military activity or military ownership, directly or indirectly, I think it was in the strategic interests of India to know exactly where the money comes from. When you're dealing with opaque economies, it's very important to be very careful and to keep a watchful eye. Wherever you're dealing with very transparent financial markets, financial systems, like you see in Europe or in UK or in the US, Canada, Australia, the systems themselves are so robust and transparent that you need not worry about them.
Has India been able to reap the advantage of the growing wariness of the world vis-a-vis China? there was a time last year around March, April, May, when the world was looking rather suspiciously at China, especially in the manner in which the COVID virus had initially been, as many people like to point out, and even Trump did, exported by China. The question many Indians want to know today is that India was being seen as an alternative destination to China by the world. Are we in any position to have got the advantage of that?
I think we should move beyond the narrative of becoming an alternative to another country. I think we should look at the positive narrative that we are trying to set of being the primary partner of corporations and businesses and countries around the world. India, given its democracy, given its rule-based and multilateral engagement with all the countries around the world, India is looked at as a trusted partner. And almost all supply chains today are looking at countries which are resilient, countries which are honest in their businesses and dealings, countries where the rule of law prevails so that they have a court of appeal, an honest system of doing business. And therefore, my belief is that the significant reforms that India has undertaken in the last year particularly, and in the last few years, are clearly helping poise India as the primary focus of investments from around the world. The current Atmanirbhar Bharat program adds a lot more to that narrative, particularly the fact that for the first time, India is trying to prepare domestic industry in terms of quality, in terms of productivity, in terms of cost, efficiency, competitiveness. So we believe that on our own merits, on the merits of the capabilities of our young boys and girls, on the merit of the skills that India possesses, on the merit of the natural resources that for years were not able to be really fully exploited in India. I think it's the merit of India that will make us not a counterpoint to some other country or an alternative, but the primary destination that world businesses and countries will look to engage with.
On a day when the Prime Minister is in Bangladesh, I want to ask you this question. China has the Belt and Road Initiative, and even friends like Bangladesh are a part of this. How is a country like Bangladesh, which has China as its largest trading partner and not India, when you say that, you know, India has this great relationship with the countries that it shares borders with?
Well, clearly, Prime Minister Modi has had a continuous engagement and outreach with all our neighbors. You know, Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji had once famously remarked that you can choose your friends, but you cannot choose your neighbors. And I think all your viewers will recall that in the very first swearing-in ceremony way back in 2014, for the first time ever, India and Prime Minister Modi had invited all the heads of state of SAARC countries to participate in the swearing-in of the new government. It was a big message given out. And ever since then, we have been working relentlessly to build up stronger relations with all our neighboring countries. I think the effort that was required to develop more competitiveness, bring more value to the products and services that we can offer to our neighbors, the process has been ongoing. It has helped us expand our trade with countries like Bangladesh. And I have the confidence that going forward, we'll be in a position to overtake China in their engagement with Bangladesh. We are working with that single-minded purpose. And our industry has the ability. Our service sector has the confidence. We in government are also proposing several initiatives, some of which will be discussed during Prime Minister Modi's visit to Bangladesh. And we don't grudge any country their engagement with anybody else. I think we focus on what we can do with that country better.
Mr. Piyush Goyal, in the first 9 months of this financial year, 2021, we've seen a robust FDI of 67 billion coming in. I want to ask you, how are we going to end this entire year in terms of FDI? And has the pandemic had any impact, and how are we looking at the next fiscal as far as FDI is concerned?
But clearly on FDI, it will be a record year, despite COVID, and despite the fact that all international statistics suggest that foreign investments across the world are going to significantly fall in current months. In fact, 2020, it fell significantly from previous levels. India was amongst the rare countries which saw growth in FDI, even in the calendar 2020 or fiscal 2021. India provides a very good investment destination, a large market of 135 crore Indians aspiring for a better quality of life. So, and an enabling environment in which investors are enjoying both good returns on their investment, large market, and also helping India in its development objectives. Therefore, in terms of FDI, I have absolutely no doubt it will be a record FDI. But I'd like to share one other data point which will be very heartening to note. While, of course, in the Indian Railways, we have lost out significantly on passenger traffic. Due to the COVID, most people would not like to undertake long journeys, and neither are we allowing the unreserved trains to be loaded with people and become a COVID spreader. But in terms of freight, which is a very important element in judging the economic revival, I'm sure all your viewers will be delighted to know that since September 2020 until February 2021, for the last 6 months, month after month, we have seen the highest loading in Indian Railways ever. Every month from September to February, highest loading in the history of Indian Railways every month. And when we close March 2021, despite the setback of the first few months of the lockdown, you'll be delighted when I share with you that we'll be exceeding last year's loading in the Indian Railways in terms of freight. And it will be the highest freight loading that Indian Railways has seen in its long, long history.
Is that a byproduct of the high petroleum prices, the fuel prices in the country, which have been rocketing and somehow suddenly, as if with a magic wand, come to a standstill and then begin to decline during elections?
Navika, you can choose to get onto another agenda if you so desire. But the reality is the petrol prices or diesel prices are a very recent phenomena. I'm talking of right since August when we started growing, and from September when we did record growth. So clearly there's no linkage between the two.
So are you saying that politics is no longer your agenda as far as economics is concerned, or is economics always a result of the politics?
If I recall correctly, in this very room, in your program, I have said this before, that there always was a notion in India that good economics does not make for good politics. I think Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who, as you are all aware, is today India's longest serving leader in a high constitutional position in terms of being Chief Minister and Prime Minister for over 19 years. I remember you had commented on this a few months ago. 12 years as Chief Minister, 7 years as Prime Minister. No other leader has held this achievement for 19 years at a stretch ever in the history of independent India. And for 19 years, he has consistently proven year after year that good economics makes for good politics also. The people of India are smart. The people of India understand what's good for them. The people of India see the intention of the leader, see the honesty of purpose of the leader, see his commitment, see his hard work to make India once again regain that lost glory. And therefore, good economics with a good intention will certainly make for good politics. And we have no doubt that many decisions which may seem difficult to implement initially, which may face a lot of resistance, in the initial months or years will ultimately appeal to the people when they realize the good that they can get out of our decisions.
Is that the voice of experience coming from the chief negotiator with the farmers' organizations, after the farm laws were passed by Parliament?
Well, I think that's where bad politics trumps good economics. Where a local government in a particular state in India chose this occasion of passing of the farm laws to spread a lot of canards, ideology, and I don't mind saying it, the left-leaning ideology, which has almost become extinct in India, and post the West Bengal election, we may actually have difficulty finding them anywhere in northern India except possibly some presence in the state in South India, Kerala. Other than that, you will not find that ideology anywhere in the country. I think they looked at this as an opportunity to try and create, to disrupt growth, to kind of create an anarchic situation, and created absolutely false narratives. Things like corporates will take away the land of the farmer, or the MSP system will be discontinued, which is a kind of backstop or a protection to the farmers in India. And their entire narrative rested on falsehoods. I'm sure the farmers in Punjab, in Haryana, in other parts of the country, all will see through the very, very nefarious designs of some of these left-leaning leaders. Of course, the agitation today is restricted to only a pocket in 1 or 2 states. Today we had a Bharat Bandh, for instance. The 5th or 6th Bharat Bandh announced against the farm laws, which included a train blockage. And I've been monitoring it through the day, by the hour. And the reality is they are not getting any support anywhere in the country. The little bit of few trains, I mean, we are running some 4,000-5,000 trains, freight trains, mail express trains, 1,000 mail express trains, so many trains running across the country. All through the day, the last report that I saw, in the whole country, some 60 odd trains were disrupted, some for 10 minutes, some for 5, 10, 15 minutes. Now, I remember, of course, as political leaders, we used to do Mumbai Bandh and Bharat Bandh in our times also. In Mumbai alone, we would do a train blockage at 200 places. Here in the whole country, they are not able to get support to block trains in even 50, 60, 70 places. It clearly shows farmers across the country are happy with these laws. They see benefit, growth, investment in infrastructure, higher income for the farmers. And on one last point, these laws do not take away anything from what was already existing. They are an added option given to the farmers. So as they say, सब कुछ बरकरार रखते हुए एक और विकल्प दिया गया है किसानों को. कोई चीज उनसे छीनी नहीं है. उल्टे पंजाब में अगर कोई किसान कॉन्ट्रैक्ट करके बैकआउट करता है तो उसको जेल की सजा हो सकती है पंजाब के प्रदेश के कानून के हिसाब से. हमने केंद्रीय कानून से वो सजा का प्रावधान को ओवरराइड कर दिया कि कोई किसान को जेल की टर्म नहीं हो सकती है, उसको जेल के कटघरे में कोई भी व्यक्ति खड़ा नहीं कर सकता है. हमने इतनी सुरक्षा दी है, कानून में ये सुरक्षा दी है कि कोई भी व्यक्ति किसी भी हालत में कोई भी तकलीफ हो, लेकिन किसान की जमीन उससे छीनी नहीं जा सकती है, चाहे वो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट ऑनर करे नहीं करे कुछ हो. उल्टे जो लोग एग्रीकल्चर प्रोड्यूस खरीदते हैं उनको रोना चाहिए था. टेंशन तो उनको होनी चाहिए थी कि किसान को पूरी छूट है कि वो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट से बैकआउट कर सकता है, परंतु जो खरीदार है उसको जरा भी छूट नहीं है, उसको जेल भी हो सकती है, उसको पेनल्टी भी लग सकती है.
तो पंजाब का किसान कैप्टन अमरिंदर सिंह को कैप्टन अमरिंदर सिंह की बात मानता है, आपकी बात नहीं मानता, ऐसा क्यों?
ये भी कहा कि एमएसपी बरकरार रहेगा, ये भी आश्वस्त किया है. हमने 1 लाख करोड़ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर क्रिएट करने का काम शुरू किया है. एफसीआई सीडब्ल्यूसी को और मजबूत बना रहे हैं. तो हम अपनी तरफ से अच्छा काम करने में लगे हैं.
किसान मान क्यों नहीं रहा आपकी बात?
पंजाब के किसान भी समझ जाएंगे कि ये उनके साथ छल किया गया उनको धोखे में रखा गया। और मुझे विश्वास है हमारे किसान के भाई बहन समझदार हैं और अवश्य इस बात को समझेंगे कि ये कानून उनके हित में है और इसको स्वीकार करेंगे, बशर्ते इसमें राजनीति ना घुसाई जाए, बशर्ते ये जो लेफ्टिस्ट एलिमेंट्स इसको ड्राइव कर रहे हैं पीछे से, बशर्ते कैप्टन अमरिंदर सिंह इसमें अपने विपक्षी दलों को निपटाने की कोशिश के बदले देश हित, किसान हित और जनहित की ज्यादा चिंता करें।
Let us turn to the issue of trade now. US and India have grown as far as their strategic ties are concerned. However, as far as our trade is concerned, it's only $150 billion compared to $560 billion, the trade relations between US and China. I want to ask you, you've been trying to sign an Indo-US trade deal for the longest time, since 2019. At what stage is the negotiation at this point in time? And are we looking at any concrete fallout of these negotiations?
I think on many occasions I have shared with the people of India that trade deals should never be done in a hurry. And trade deals should not be looked at only as tools of diplomacy. Trade should stand on its own legs. Diplomacy and other strategic relations should stand on their own legs. Because when we sign a trade deal, we are actually signing on something which will impact our children and our grandchildren. What we are signing will impact the country for decades and years to come. And more often than not, you cannot back out of what you have agreed once. Therefore, this government is very, very cautious in its approach to trade deals. This government wants to ensure there's reciprocity in trade deals. We want to ensure that trade deals result in jobs, result in investments, result in opportunities for our MSME sector, our farmers, our milk producers and dairy. And therefore, we go about it very, very cautiously. We had extensive discussions with the US. I think on more than one occasion, we were almost on the cusp on agreeing on a much diluted but an initial package. But unfortunately, the goalpost got changed a couple of times. And each one of those times, India decided that we will stick to our guns. If the goalpost changes on one end, then it so changes on our end also. And we didn't come to terms. I'm glad to share with you that only, I think yesterday, I had my first engagement with my counterpart in the US, Miss Catherine Tai. She's a very distinguished person who probably for the first time has got selected by the Senate with a 98-0 vote. So total bipartisan support. So her approach to trade seems to have resonated with the people of the US in a very positive fashion. And we hit it off extremely well yesterday in our very first engagement. And we are looking forward to quickly ramp up our discussions. Of course, the US new administration has broadly announced that they are not looking at free trade agreements in the near future. Probably they are also looking at the way India looks at it, that doing these things in a hurry is not always advisable. Having said that, we are looking at expanding our trade ties through removal of non-trade barriers, through better mutual recognition agreements, through other means to expand both the trade in goods and services. We have an ambitious target ahead of us. And I'm confident, given our competitive advantage or our advantage on, particularly on the IT side, on the digital services side, both tracks, goods and services, will see tremendous growth in the months and years to come.
You've been talking of a trillion, 1 trillion mark as an objective or a goal for the IT digital side in terms of exports. How close are we and what's the timeline?
Well, I'm delighted to share with all of you. Again, this came out of a VC I had yesterday with all the industry associations from around the country. It was a long 3-hour engagement, before which I had had a long, very, very long engagement with all the export promotion councils 3 days ago. After engaging with both these sets of people, and they cover the entire gamut of the Indian economy. I'm delighted to share 2 or 3 very, very redeeming features demonstrating India's resilience and our capabilities, of which I think all your viewers and the nation can be proud. First, India did not let down any of our international clients when it came to services, even during the 3 months of complete lockdown or through the unlock period. So India met all our service level commitments, quickly rejigged our way of working, went into homes, working from home, moved equipment, set up broadband lines, and we met every commitment internationally. So other than hospitality and tourism and travel, on all other services, we've been able to maintain our export levels like before. In fact, on the IT side, NASSCOM yesterday informed me that they would actually see a growth in exports, growth in service exports on the IT side in the pandemic year. Similarly, on goods, despite 3 months of complete lockdown, 2.5, 3 months, and then a gradual unlock, I'm delighted to share with you that as against about $313 billion of goods export last year, we'll end the year with almost 93% back, about $290 billion. Now, isn't that great to hear that a country with so much stress in a challenging year has bounced back so quickly that we are going to just be 7% short in our export from the previous year. This demonstrates that India is a trusted partner, and it has given a strong message to our buyers from across the world that go and deal with India, work with India. You can trust them, you can rely on them, even in difficult times.
So you're saying the negative 10% growth of exports is not something that you would worry about, or the trade deficit that we've run up in the last year?
No, incidentally, last year our trade deficit will come down.
Yeah, because imports have also reduced.
Not reduced, they've reduced much more.
20% or odd.
Probably more than 20%. Whereas in the export front, we would not even be a 10% fall. So overall, we'll see a much significant improvement in our trade deficit, including services and goods. We may almost become surplus. There's a good possibility that we'll close the year with a surplus. So India is in a very sweet spot today. Our forex reserves are at an all-time high, 4th largest in the world, nearly $600 billion, which gives a lot of comfort to investors in India, because in a way, it ensures stability of our currency. It ensures our ability to import goods and services that are required by India, modern technology, machinery, raw materials which are required by India. We have the headroom to expand our imports wherever we need it, which will help further expand our job creation, industry, investment in services, and therefore finally make India a much stronger economy, well poised to get back on track to a $5 trillion economy, probably instead of 2024 by 2025.
Mr. Piyush Goyal, I want to ask you, in December, there was a modest growth in the index of industrial production. In January, once again, we saw a negative growth of 1.6%. In the meanwhile, in February, the inflation rate has gone up to 5.3%. Do you think we are still not out of the woods as far as a recovery of manufacturing and industrial production is concerned?
Navika ji, the race is not won until the last centimeter is crossed and you cross the finish line. So I think for a young nation like India, young in terms of our wanting to engage with the world from a position of strength, from a position of reciprocity, I think for a nation like India, the race has just begun. And we have miles to go. We have a long way to cover. These small hiccups on a month-on-month basis occasionally should not become our benchmark, should not make us lose our self-confidence. It's the sustainable numbers. And I gave you sustainable data on exports. I gave you sustainable data on mobility, on growth in freight traffic. I gave you sustainable data on, look at what's happening on steel industry, cement industry, construction industry, real estate sector, all job creating sectors, all fundamental to India's infrastructure requirements. The $1.4 trillion pipeline of infrastructure, 111 lakh crores of infrastructure projects in the national infrastructure pipeline. The self-confidence with which India today is engaging with our own requirements and the needs of the world through the Atmanirbhar Bharat package. The steady and low interest rates that prevail, the support we are getting from Reserve Bank of India. Finally, if I may add, all of these are finally signs of a resurgent economy. Despite the gradually inching up COVID numbers, the mood of the nation is very, very positive. The support for Prime Minister Narendra Modi is at an all-time high. There's phenomenal support. Despite the projections, I don't know whether your projections are outdated or your seapologist has gone wrong, but I can predict on this stage today that the Bharatiya Janata Party is going to go form a government in West Bengal with a 2/3 majority in the election, and come 2nd May, you are in for surprises. You'll have to reorient your own seapology and your own predictions.
Mr. Piyush Goyal, you're nothing if you're not a good politician. जब आपकी मर्जी होती है आप कहते हैं we are a young country. जब आपकी मर्जी होती है आप कहते हैं we are the most ancient civilization of the world. It's a twist of words, it's a twist of terminology. Are you saying that when I talk about the January IIP numbers, you will remind me कि अभी तो हम class 1 में हैं, class 2 में हैं, हमें board का paper मत दो. I'm asking, India has gone through bad times on the economic front now for at least a couple of years, if not more. And if you listen to Mr. Rahul Gandhi, then since the time DEMO was brought in 2016, Achhe Din actually went out of the window. Mr. Piyush Goyal, I want to ask you, as do many of our viewers and citizens of India want to ask you, when are we going to turn the corner?
First of all, we are an ancient nation. We are a nation very proud of our rich culture, our heritage. हम तो राम राज्य के समय से इस देश में अपने विरासत के ऊपर गर्व करते हैं. तो जहाँ तक एंशिएंट नेशन या एक बहुत ही विख्यात देश होने की बात है, तो हमारे लिए गर्व की बात है. और आज पूरा देश चाहता है कि पूरे देश में राम राज्य की तरह काम हो, सरकारें चले, और वही काम पे हम लगे. ये बात अलग है कि मैंने जब यंग नेशन का मैंने उसको साथ में कैविएट किया था. I said young nation in terms of our global engagement, in terms of our coming out of the economic cussedness to try and engage with the world with reciprocity and as equals. So you missed out my caveat.
No, I definitely.
Having said that,
you are overturning all the outlook that was done by your predecessor, Mr. Kamal Nath. You are turning around the FTA with Singapore. वो बाहर देख रहे थे, पर आपको पसंद नहीं.
2 more minutes. Having said that, 2 more points I'd like to make. First, about Times Now's ratings. ऐसा तो नहीं है कि हर हफ्ते, हर रोज, हर वक्त आपकी रेटिंग स्टेडी रहती है. इसका ये मतलब है एडवर्टाइजर शुड स्टार्ट वरिंग अबाउट अ चैनल और अ न्यूज़पेपर.
वो तो आपकी सरकार टीआरपी स्कैम
कम ज्यादा हो,
आपकी सरकार टीआरपी स्कैम इन्वेस्टिगेट कर रही है, तो पता ही चल जाएगा क्या
उसमें एकदम सामने आएगा क्या क्या किसने गलत काम किया, और उस पर सख्त से सख्त एक्शन होगा. लेकिन मैं वाइडर पॉइंट पे हूं कि नंबर्स टेल अ स्टोरी, सेंटिमेंट गिव्स यू द कॉन्फिडेंस. और जहां तक राहुल गांधी जी की बात है, उनके लिए अच्छे दिन तो शायद पता नहीं कहां कहां जाते हैं, मुझे इतना डिटेल नहीं मालूम, पर कहानियां सुनते हैं कंबोडिया, इटली, दुबई, पता नहीं कहां कहां पे उनके अच्छे दिन तो शायद दुनिया भर में रहते हैं. हमारे लिए जब उस माता के घर में शौचालय आता है, हमारी बहन के घर में कुकिंग गैस कनेक्शन आता है, हमारे लिए तो वो अच्छे दिन है. जब कोई गरीब को एक छाया मिलती है, एक अपना घर मिलता है, घरौंडा मिलता है, हमारे लिए तो वो अच्छे दिन है. जब एक किसी किसान को 6,000 रुपए हर वर्ष एक मानधन, कि हमारे अन्नदाताओं ने हमारे देश को समृद्ध बनाया, देश में कभी आज अनाज की कमी नहीं होने दी. जब हम 6,000 रुपए उसके खाते में बिना भेदभाव के देश भर में देते हैं, पश्चिम बंगाल छोड़ के, उनको तो अब 2 साल का बकाया एक साथ मिलेगा 2 मई के बाद जब बीजेपी की सरकार आएगी, क्योंकि ममता जी
आप इतने आत्मविश्वास से कह रहे हैं कि विपक्ष अभी कहने लग जाएगा कि आपने ईवीएम हैक कर लिए हैं।
वो तो मैंने अभी देखा, आपके टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया में बड़ा इश्तिहार था कि ईवीएम्स के रहते कितनी बार तृणमूल कांग्रेस जीती है, कितनी बार कांग्रेस जीती है। तो ये बड़ा सिलेक्टिव है कि जहां पे वो जीतते हैं तो वहां तो ईवीएम हैक नहीं हुई और बाकी जगह हैक हो गई। और इतने सारे इसके ऊपर मेरे ख्याल से रिसर्च, चैलेंज सब कुछ हो चुका है कि इस देश की जनता भी रिडिक्यूल करती है। कभी कोई ईवीएम पे ट्वीट आए ना हमारे वरिष्ठ विपक्षी दल के नेता का, तो उसके नीचे के कमेंट्स अवश्य आप देखिएगा।
वरिष्ठ से आपका रेफरेंस राहुल गांधी जी को है? वो तो युवा नेता है।
जो अच्छे दिन ढूंढ रहे हैं दुनिया भर में जाके, उनको यहाँ के अच्छे दिन कहाँ दिखेंगे?
राहुल गांधी जी का एक और चार्ज है आपकी सरकार पर, और वो है कि आप क्रोनी कैपिटलिस्ट को अब देश का सिल्वर बेचने वाले हैं। ये जो आपका डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट का प्लान है, जितनी जमा पूंजी इस देश ने बनाई है पिछले 70-72 सालों में, वो सब कुछ आप नीलाम कर देने वाले हैं अपने दोस्तों को। अडानी अंबानी की सरकार कहते हैं वो आपको, उन्हें आप क्या जवाब देंगे?
मैं समझता हूँ एक जब कोई बौखला जाता है व्यक्ति, तो वो ढूंढता रहता है कोई जुमले जिसके ऊपर वो लोगों को भ्रमित कर सके। और मैं समझता हूँ कि राहुल गांधी जी कंप्लीटली डिस्कनेक्टेड है आज की रियलिटी के साथ। उनको ध्यान में नहीं आ रहा है कि आज पूरा विश्व मॉडर्न टेक्नोलॉजी, नए काम करने के तरीके, स्टार्टअप की दुनिया ने एक पूरे विश्व को एक नए रूप से फिर एक बार आर्थिक व्यवस्थाओं को देखना शुरू किया है। मेरे ख्याल से जो समय की मांग होती है हमें उसके साथ रहना चाहिए। एक समय की मांग थी कि देश में बैंक्स नेशनलाइज हो, किए गए। एक समय की मांग थी कि इंडिया में बड़े बड़े स्टील प्लांट्स लगे, इन्वेस्टमेंट, प्राइवेट इन्वेस्टमेंट कम था उस समय, विदेश से पूंजी भारत आती नहीं थी, तो सरकार ने लगाए। उस समय की मांग के हिसाब से भाखड़ा नांगल डैम अच्छा हुआ कि किया गया। पर आज जो हम देखने जाते हैं विश्व भर में, तो आज एफिशिएंसी लानी है, नए तरीके के काम करने के ढंग भारत में लाने हैं। तो दोनों ट्रैक्स का अपना महत्व है। आज भी कुछ स्ट्रेटेजिक सेक्टर्स में भारत की सरकार की इन्वेस्टमेंट, सरकार का इन्वॉल्वमेंट रहेगा। उदाहरण के लिए टेलीकॉम सेक्टर हमने ओपन किया। पहले तो क्या 2% लोगों के पास फोन था, आज सभी के पास फोन है, शायद हर घर तक फोन पहुंच गया होगा। लेकिन ये प्राइवेट सेक्टर ने किया, पब्लिक सेक्टर तो कर नहीं पाई। लेकिन उस पर नियंत्रण रखने के लिए और स्ट्रेटेजिक या डिफेंस इंटरेस्ट के लिए हमें बीएसएनएल को भी रखना है, क्योंकि बीएसएनएल प्रोवाइड करता है सिक्योर कम्युनिकेशन सरकार को, डिफेंस को। तो बैलेंस बहुत जरूरी है। और
बाकी लोगों को तो आप सिक्योर कम्युनिकेशन करने नहीं देते ना, आप टैप करते हैं, आप गाइडलाइंस के थ्रू व्हाट्सएप में क्या है जानना चाहते हैं, आप रोज नई तरह से प्रिवेसी वायलेट करने के तरीके ढूंढते रहते हैं।
अब आप मुझे बताइए कि इस सरकार ने कभी राजस्थान की तरह इलीगल टैपिंग किया? आपको कोई ऐसी खबर कभी मिली?
आपके होम स्टेट में इसी पर जब चर्चा हो रही है और ऑफिसर जिन्होंने 100 करोड़ एक्सटॉर्शन की एलिगेशन लगाई है, उन्हीं के खिलाफ अब कार्रवाई शुरू कर।
वो होम स्टेट भी उसी सरकार का है जिसके युवा नेता विश्व में अच्छे दिन ढूंढ रहे हैं। तो वास्तव में आरोप हमारे ऊपर क्या लग रहा है? आरोप तो कांग्रेस पे, एनसीपी और शिवसेना पे महाराष्ट्र में लग रहा है, कांग्रेस पे राजस्थान पे लग रहा है। हमारी एक पारदर्शी सरकार है, ईमानदार सरकार है और देशहित और जनहित में काम करती है। हाँ, अगर कोई टेररिज्म की हमें खबर मिलती है, अगर कोई खबर मिलती है कोई अटैक होने वाला है, तो उसके ऊपर तो कानूनी एक प्रावधान है, एक तरीका है। हम उस तरीके के हिसाब से तरीका फॉलो करके इस देश को एक रखना, इस देश को सुरक्षित रखना, ये हमारी जिम्मेदारी है। और जिम्मेदारी को पूरी तरीके से निर्वाह करने की हमने शपथ ली है। तो मैं समझता हूं कि ये एक सरकार प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के नीचे ऐसी काम कर रही है जो सही माने में इस देश को ऊंचाइयों तक पहुंचाने में लगी है और इस देश को सुरक्षित रखने में लगी है।
हमारे व्यूअर्स की तरफ से एक आखिरी सवाल है जो मैं आपसे पूछना चाहूंगी कि पीएलआई स्कीम पर प्रधानमंत्री और सरकार ने बहुत ज्यादा तवज्जो दी है, एम्फेसिस दिया है और इसको माना जा रहा है वन ऑफ द की स्टेप्स टुवर्ड्स रिजुविनेटिंग मैन्युफैक्चरिंग. कैन यू टेल अस द विजन ऑफ सच अ मूव एंड कैन यू टेल अस द इम्पैक्ट स्पेशली इन द एरिया ऑफ इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स एंड अदर सेक्टर्स?
नाविका जी, सबसे पहले तो मैं ये कहना चाहूंगा, कोई भी देश अगर अंतर्राष्ट्रीय पटल पर अपना कारोबार बढ़ाना चाहता है, अपना एंगेजमेंट बढ़ाना चाहता है, तो सबसे पहले उसको अपने अंदरूनी सिस्टम्स को मजबूत बनाना पड़ता है. यू हैव टू मेक योर ओन डोमेस्टिक मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कैपेबिलिटीज, सर्विस डिलीवरी, क्वालिटी, हाई क्वालिटी, cost competitive, high productivity, efficient, so that you are not threatened by influx of imports, but you have the ability to provide to the rest of the world. And that's where you can have reciprocal trade. पिछली सरकारों ने देश को तो कभी मजबूत बनाया नहीं, पर अलग अलग ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट्स वगैरह करके देश की इतनी बड़ी मार्केट को विदेशों को खोल दिया. हमारा मानना है कि जैसे जैसे हम विश्व में अपनी एंगेजमेंट बढ़ाते हैं, पहले देश की जो कैपेसिटी है उसको और मजबूत करना चाहिए, हमारी क्षमता को और सुदृढ़ बनाना चाहिए. एंड देयरफॉर द पीएलआई स्कीम is a very, very important program of the Atmanirbhar Bharat package. We believe we have to create global giants. We have to create large capacities. We have to bring quality consciousness. And I'm working closely with BIS to bring in quality standards in a lot of products in the country so that देश में भी एक quality consciousness आए. हम सब कोई कपड़ा खरीदने जाएं, पानी खरीदें, फोन खरीदें, कागज खरीदें, फर्नीचर खरीदें, कारपेट खरीदें, सर्विसेज में होटल की सर्विस ने हर एक चीज के स्टैंडर्ड्स हमने विश्व स्तरीय बनाने पड़ेंगे. देश को उसको स्वीकार कराना पड़ेगा. शुरू में थोड़ी दिक्कत लगेगी, पर अल्टीमेटली क्वालिटी इज एट जीरो कॉस्ट. उल्टे क्वालिटी से कॉस्ट कम होती है, क्वालिटी से प्रोडक्टिविटी बढ़ती है, क्वालिटी से स्केल ऑफ ऑपरेशन बढ़ सकता है, डिमांड और आती है और उससे कॉस्ट कम होती है. तो हमने एक उद्योग मंथन सीरीज शुरू की इंडस्ट्री मिनिस्ट्री ने, जिसमें 45 वेबिनार्स सेक्टोरली, स्टील, सीमेंट, रोड लेइंग, रेलवेज के अलग अलग फैक्ट्री प्रोडक्ट्स, ऐसे एक एक सेक्टर की हमने क्वालिटी और प्रोडक्टिविटी पे देश को तैयार करने के लिए एक बहुत बड़ा प्रोग्राम देश भर में चला है. साथ में प्रोडक्शन लिंक्ड इंसेंटिव्स, पीएलआई स्कीम से हम इंसेंटिवाइज करना चाह रहे हैं आर&डी को, इन्वेस्टमेंट्स को, जिससे कैपेक्स हो. इस इन्वेस्टमेंट से प्रोडक्शन बढ़े, देश की क्षमता और विश्व स्तरीय हो, और हम इसको एक बहुत प्रमुख अंग अमंग सेवरल अदर स्टेप्स. आखिर माइंस में हमने बहुत गेम चेंजिंग रिफॉर्म्स किए, लेबर लॉज में रिफॉर्म्स किए, फार्म लॉज में किए, फाइनेंशियल सेक्टर में बहुत ही समय से जो डिमांड्स थी उसमें रिफॉर्म किए. तो एक ये होलिस्टिक एफर्ट है, ये एक कड़ी में खड़ा नहीं है, एक पहिए पे चलने वाली सिलसिला नहीं है. ये एक बड़ा ही कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव देश को एक विश्व स्तरीय अर्थव्यवस्था बनाने का काम प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी कर रहे हैं.
Before I let you go, Mr. Piyush Goyal, my last question to you. Can you name us 5 big companies that may have come in with FDI in the last 1 year?
Well, सबसे पहले तो तुरंत हम सबके ध्यान में मोबाइल सेक्टर आता है, क्योंकि इसका पीएलआई स्कीम कुछ समय पहले ही अनाउंस हो गई थी. और मैं समझता हूँ एप्पल, सैमसंग, ये दो तो ऐसे स्ट्रेट ध्यान में आते हैं जिन्होंने बहुत बड़े पैमाने पे भारत में निवेश किया है, भारत में एक्सपैंड किए हैं अपने फैसिलिटीज. और मैं समझता हूँ दे आर लुकिंग एट इंडिया एज देयर प्राइम प्रोडक्शन बेस टू मीट द नीड्स ऑफ द वर्ल्ड. तो मोबाइल में तो हमने ऑलरेडी इस टाइप का एक सिग्निफिकेंट इन्वेस्टमेंट इंटरेस्ट देखा है. फार्मा एक और सेक्टर है जिसमें कई सारी कंपनीज भारत में निवेश बढ़ा रही हैं. मोस्ट ऑफ देम आर ऑलरेडी इन इंडिया, बट दे आर लुकिंग एट एक्सपैंडिंग इन्वेस्टमेंट्स इन इंडिया. इसी के साथ साथ हमने 13-14 सेक्टर्स जिसमें पीएलआई की है, इसमें कई कंपनीज के साथ चर्चा चल रही है. इन्वेस्ट इंडिया जो मेरे विभाग में एक इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रमोशन एजेंसी है और जिसको कई वर्षों से हर वर्ष यूनाइटेड नेशन से अवार्ड मिलता है एज द बेस्ट इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रमोशन एजेंसी इन द एंटायर वर्ल्ड, उसने लगभग 3 से 4 जिस तेज गति से अलग अलग क्षेत्र में इन्वेस्टमेंट आ रहा है, मैं आई कैन काउंट आउट, ऑटोमोबाइल्स में इन्वेस्टमेंट आ रहा है, कई कंपनियों ने ऑटोमोबाइल में इन्वेस्ट किया है भारत में बड़े रूप में और चाहते हैं उसको निवेश को बढ़ाना। कई कंपनीज ने ऑटो कंपोनेंट्स और उसके पूरे इकोसिस्टम में किया है। टायर्स में इन्वेस्टमेंट बढ़ रहा है भारत में, पिरेली, मिशेलिन, ये सब कंपनियां बड़े रूप में भारत में आ रही हैं। अमेरिका से हम देख रहे हैं कि कई सारे इन्वेस्टमेंट फंड्स भारत में आना चाहते हैं। ऑस्ट्रेलिया से माइनिंग कंपनीज अब भारत की तरफ देख रही हैं। तो एक उत्साह भारत में निवेश करने का नेवर सीन बिफोर उत्साह आज के दिन देश में देखने को मिलता है।
Well, on that optimistic note, with the Commerce, Industries, Food and Railways Minister telling us that opportunity is knocking on India's doors, this is possibly the best message we can take home from this India Economic Conclave. Thank you very much, Mr. Piyush Goyal, for joining us physically here at, a function that is being held on the ground for the first time in 12 months.
Thank you, Navika ji. It's been a real pleasure. And I can see you've maintained social distancing. You put in the plexiglass. You ensured everybody is wearing a mask in the audience. I don't see one person who's without a mask. Compliments to you. Please spread this message as far and wide as you can.
Responsible citizen is the way we want to go forward. Thank you very much, Mr. Goyal.